In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a water pump on your Chevy Sonic. This will be located on the passenger side of the motor. Let's get started. Using a 13mm wrench, we're going to open up the petcock for the radiator. Drain the coolant. Once the coolant's done draining, close down the petcock. Snug it up. Pull back on the lock tab for the MAF sensor connector. Push the tab, pull straight back, remove the connector. This is our locking tab. That's our push tab. Pull the connector over to the side. Using an 8mm socket, loosen the clamp going to the throttle body for the air intake boot. Pull straight up and then towards the engine. Pull the intake boot off the throttle body. Remove the air box and the intake boot. We're going to put a jack under the corner of the oil pan. We're just going to put a little bit of pressure there to hold it as we take off the motor mount, and then we'll jack it up. Using a 15mm socket, we're going to remove the 2 nuts and 1 bolt for the motor mount. Remove the 2 nuts and 1 bolt. We're going to go slightly up on our jack until you see the mount move. Using a 15mm socket, remove the 3 bolts. Remove the motor mount using a T45 bit and an 8mm wrench. I'm going to put the wrench onto the bit. I'm going to use that to break the bolts free on the water pump pulley. I'm going to get the pulley bolt nice and loose. To access the next bolts, you can either turn the crank, or in our case, we're just going to use a 13mm wrench. Push on the tensioner. When we push on the tensioner, we're going to pull that pulley around so our next pulley bolt is on top. Remove the wrench from the tensioner and break the pulley bolt free. If your water pump pulley is spinning when you're breaking the bolts free, you can put a bit of tension on the tensioner pulling towards you. Go around until all 3 bolts are cracked free. With all of our pulley bolts free, we're going to push on that tensioner, remove the tension, and take the belt off. Remove the pulley bolts. Remove all of the bolts and the pulley. Using an E10 socket, we're going to remove the 5 bolts for the water pump. This bottom one, we're using a 1/4 inch to a 3/8 adapter to be able to clear the pulley but not hit the frame rail. Once you break them free, you're able to get them. Another tool you can use to get this bottom bolt is a small 8mm wrench. You're going to want to use the box end. Remove all of the bolts. We're going to gently pry on the water pump. Before you open this, be sure you have a collection bucket under you. There may be fluid that comes out even if the system was drained. Try to not pry on this timing cover. You can pry on this bracket right here, get in between. We're going to slowly open it to let it drain slowly. Remove the old water pump. Using a razor blade, we're going to clean the mating surface for the water pump. Using a clean rag and some parts cleaner, we're going to clean their surface area. If you had any dust, dirt, or crust get inside of the water pump area, wipe it out. Install the new water pump. Install the water pump and get the bolt started. Torque the water pump bolts to 71 inch-pounds. Install the water pump pulley and get the bolt started. Install the belt around all of the pulleys for the water pump, crank, alternator, and AC compressor. Then we're going to grab the belt in between the crank and the alternator. We're going to pull it up to our tensioner, letting it fall under the motor mount. Pull the tensioner back and install the belt onto the tensioner. Double check that all of the ribs are sitting in the ribbed pulleys. Torque the water pump pulley bolts to 15 foot-pounds. If you can't get a torque wrench on them, do the best you can. Install the motor mount. Get the bolt started to the bracket on the car first. Get them started by hand. Snug the bolts down. We don't want to pull the engine up with these bolts. Torque the 3 bolts to 43 foot-pounds. Install the nuts. Get the rear bolt started. Snug down the nuts and bolt. Torque it to 43 foot-pounds. Remove the jack. Install the intake. Get it seated on the throttle body. Make sure it's fully seated. And make sure the intake boot is not wrapped in on itself. Snug down the clamp going to the throttle body. Make sure it's nice and tight. Give it a pull, see if it moves. Give it a wiggle, make sure it can't just pull up. Install the MAP sensor. Push until you hear a click. If you don't hear a click, give it a pull, make sure it's locked on, and then close the lock. Fill the cooling system until you hit the max line at the reservoir. Start and run the car with the cap off. Do this for about 5 to 10 minutes or until all of the air bubbles stop coming out. Once the system is fully bled, double check that you have the coolant at the max line on the reservoir and reinstall the coolant cap.
The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.